Hi, boys and girls, it's Mrs. Foster, and today we are going to talk about using our school computers and taking good care of them. So let's get right to it. Let's start with some rules. Rule number one, you should already know, is that there's no food or drinks around the computers. So if you are going to use the computers and you're going to lunch right afterwards or you're coming right from lunch, please make sure that you put your lunch boxes and your water bottles or any drinks either on the floor, on a shelf, or on a counter, because we don't want those near the computer where they could spill onto the computer. Liquid can destroy computers, and food could get on the screen, the keys, little crumbs in the keyboard, and that's no good. So let's make sure we keep all food and drinks away from the computers. Rule number two is not to change any settings on the computers. So I'm talking about things like not moving the icons around, like the little C for clever or the little Mayan icon, all the little pictures that are on the desktop, leave those where they are. Don't move those around anywhere. Don't move the taskbar from the bottom to the side or to the top. Please don't move anything around on the computer. All you need to do is go into the computer program your teacher tells you to do and not change anything on the computer. Rule number three is to make sure you tell your teacher any problems as soon as you sit down at the computer. So if you sit down at the computer and you notice there's a missing key off the keyboard or there's some pencil scribbled on the screen, any problem at all, raise your hand and tell your teacher. And then we're going to look and see who used the computer before you, and we'll know that that person is the person who messed up the computer, and then we're going to talk to that person. So please, as soon as you sit down, if you notice any problems, tell your teacher. Rule number four is to handle the headphones gently. A lot of you have brought headphones from home this year, which is great. If you haven't done that yet, maybe you can go home and ask mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, who's ever at home, if you can bring in some headphones. It's just easier to have your own headphones. You can have ones that you like, that you think are comfortable, and then you just have your own headphones every time you use the computer. If you are going to borrow them from the school, we will have some for you to borrow. You need to make sure that you handle these very gently. You're not pulling on the cord, you're not chewing on the cord, you're not pulling off the ear cushions, you're not ripping the ear cushions, you're not breaking anything. Because if you do, when you give them to your teacher at the end of class, your teacher's going to check and make sure the headphones are all in good condition. And if there's anything wrong with it, then you're going to be held responsible and you're going to be given a consequence. So teachers, it's really important that the students who are borrowing the headphones, when you collect those at the end of the lab time, make sure that they're all in good order. If there is a problem, we need to give that student a consequence. And if it keeps happening with the same student over and over, please have an administrator talk to that student, because we can't have students damaging school property. That's a big problem. And students, even if they're your own headphones, be gentle with them as well, because if you do break your headphones, then you'll have to have someone at home buy you a new pair to replace them. And teachers, I did mention there would be headphones for students to borrow. You will find a blue basket like this in all of the computer labs. Excuse me. All right, so as the students come in, if they need to borrow them, they're going to take a pair from the basket, and then at the end of computer time, they will be collected again, do a quick check, make sure that they're not broken, and return them to the bin with the cord wrapped loosely around them so the cords don't get all tangled in the bin. And again, we do need to provide a consequence for any students who have damaged the headphones. And students, if you're borrowing the headphones, this is what I mean about gently wrapping the cord around the bottom of the headphones so that the cords don't get all tangled in the bin. Okay, so whether you are using your own headphones or you're borrowing headphones, you're going to plug them yourself into the computer. So you'll know where to plug them in because I have circled with a green Sharpie where to plug them in. So look for that. For the laptops, it's on the side of the laptop, usually the right-hand side. And if you're in the high stakes lab, again, you're going to look for the hole with the green circle, and that's the one you're going to plug into. In the high stakes lab, sometimes it's the one on the top, sometimes it's the one on the bottom. Again, just make sure you're plugging into the one with the green circle on it. When you are plugging in your headphones, you need to make sure they're being plugged in all the way. So don't jam them in really hard because we don't want to break the headphone jack, but do make sure it's pushed in all the way because some students, particularly in the high stakes lab, they were saying they couldn't hear, and I think what the issue was is they just didn't have their headphones plugged in all the way. Make sure they're clipped in all the way so that you can hear. All right, rule number 5 is to make sure you're typing and clicking gently. We do have to be gentle with the computers because they can break if we're being too rough with them. So you don't need to pound on the keys. You know, just a nice gentle click works fine. If you have a mouse, you don't bang it on the desk if it's not working. If it's not working, what do? You raise your hand and then the teacher will help you. Most of the computers you're going to be using are touch screen. So you're either going to use the touch screen or you're going to use the touch pad that's underneath the keyboard. So you really probably won't use a mouse too often. But if you do use a mouse, do not bang it on the table. Sometimes I hear that in Host. And speaking of Host, if you're in Host, students, all these rules I'm telling you right now, they apply in Host as well if you're using the computers. So please remind the students in Host to treat the computers the right way. Here's one more problem we did have once in a while last year that I don't want to have this year. Boys and girls, last year some students were pulling the laptop keys off the keyboard. That's a big, big no-no. That's somebody damaging school property on purpose, and that's not okay. Teachers, the keys do not fall off. Sometimes teachers last year would tell me the letter G fell off the keyboard. No, it didn't. It didn't fall off. Someone pulled it off, and that's a big problem. So that's, again, teachers, why before you leave the computer lab, you're going to walk around, and I know you don't have a lot of time, but it just takes a minute, or even have a classroom job that somebody is the tech helper of the week. And they walk around and you walk around and make sure that all the keys are on the keyboard. If one is pulled off, then that student has to be held accountable, because remember, students, if you walk in and sit down and the key's not there, you would have raised your hand already and told your teacher. So if at the end of class there's a key pulled off, you're the one who did it. And that's going to be a big problem, and you are going to receive a big consequence for that. All right, and rule number 6 is to keep your area nice and tidy. We want to leave the lab nice and clean. So if you have a pencil, paper, sometimes ladies, you take your earrings off because the headphones bother your ears when you have earrings on. Anything that's on your table, make sure you take it with you. And if you have any garbage, take that and throw it away as you leave the computer lab. One of the things that gets left a lot is used tissues. Ew. Nobody wants to come in and see your boogies on a tissue that you left there. So please make sure you throw away any garbage before you leave. All right, just a reminder, before you leave the lab, clean up your area, push in your chairs, throw away your trash, return your headphones if you borrowed headphones, and teachers, make sure you check that they're not damaged. And in the laptop labs, teachers, we leave the laptop lids open so that the next class doesn't have to worry about that, and so that the computers can get updates overnight. And then teachers, this is something new. There's going to be a checklist on the door, and I'd like to have you fill that out before you leave. It's just a little reminder of what needs to be done before you leave. It just takes a second to fill out. All right, and here's what the labs should look like when you leave. Look at how nice and clean they are. All the garbage is off the tables. The chairs are pushed in. This is the way it should look every time we come to the lab and leave the lab. All right, teachers, here's that checklist I mentioned that's going to be hanging on the door for you to quickly fill out before you leave. Just jot down your name and the date, Check off that the areas are all cleaned and the chairs are pushed in. Check off that all the headphones that were borrowed have been returned. Check off that all the computers are working. If they're not all working, if there is a problem, don't check that. Fill out the online form for me of what's wrong and check that. I do have the QR code in all the labs so that you can scan it with your phone and let me know what the problem is. Do not write problems on this paper because I don't come in and check the labs every day. I just only know that there's a problem if you fill out the form. So do that for me if there is an issue. Sometimes students, you're going to be using a laptop cart for probably mainly for iReady testing. So teachers, there are procedures for that as well. Inside the laptop door, there are student rosters. And I need you to put the student's name next to the computer number, and they're going to use that same computer every time. So that again, if there is an issue, we know which student to come back to and talk to about what the issue is and why it happened. And please give a copy of this to me. There's a checkout sheet on top, teachers. And again, fill this out after you're done using the computers, and don't write problems on this because I won't look at this. If there is a problem, then use the online tech form. And boys and girls and teachers, this is the way the laptop cart should look. Nice and orderly, with make sure that they're all plugged in when you put them back into the cart. Each computer is in its numbered slot. They're all plugged in and they're ready for the next group to use. Make sure also, teachers, that the red light is on the back of the cart. Sometimes it gets switched off accidentally and then none of the computers are charged the next day or for the next class because the power switch wasn't on. So maybe again you have a tech helper and that's their job. Their job is to check to make sure all the computers are plugged in securely and that the red light is on for you. And again, students, on the on the laptops, you know where to plug in your headphones, where the green circle is. Teachers, with these laptops, sometimes you have some little issues, like the mouse touchpad isn't working or the screen is black. I have some troubleshooting tips on top of the laptop cart for you, and in the laptop labs I have posters so that you can hopefully fix those issues by looking at the troubleshooting tips. And another thing on the computer cart is the computer sign-in sheet. So depending on what you're using, what program you're using, it tells you how to log in the computers. All right, everybody. Our theme this year is choose to be. And when it comes to our classroom and school computers, we need to choose to be respectful and responsible with our school technology because we have to take care of it. If we don't take care of it and it's broken, then we don't have enough computers, and that's not good for us. So be respectful, be responsible, take care of our school computers, and everything will be perfect. All right, have a great day, everybody, and I'll see you later in the library.